Every week, Richard and I get questions from frontline fundraisers like you, desperate for answers on how to do their best work. In today's podcast, Richard and I answer some of the most asked and burning questions from your colleagues around the world. Our work at Veritas is to come alongside of you as fundraisers to help you succeed. And hopefully, our answers today will help you on that path.
Welcome to the Nothing But Major Gifts podcast from Veritas Group, featuring Richard Perry and Jeff Schreifels. Twice a month, we bring you the latest and best thinking about major gift fundraising, so you can develop authentic relationships with your major donors. Here are your hosts, Richard and Jeff.
Hey there. It's good to have you with us on the podcast today. I have Richard Perry with me. And Richard, today we're going to answer burning questions from frontline fundraisers.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, Jeff. In fact, I think we need to make this sort of a reoccurring topic on the podcast from time to time, because we get so many questions in emails from fundraisers each week from all around the world.
Yeah.
Either when we do the webinars that we do, or sometimes the podcasts or the blogs and so on. And we just feel bad if we can't get to them. In fact, as you know, we recently did a webinar where we had 275 questions that people submitted during the 1 hour presentation, and we couldn't even get to them all.
I know. I mean, frontline fundraisers, managers, and executive directors, they're all looking for those answers on how to do mid, major, and planned giving right. And, you know, you and I think, well, we've talked about this stuff over and over, and I'm sure people are just sick of hearing about it from us. But when you see these questions come through, we think, well, no, not everyone has heard us talk about this stuff or that issue, or they wouldn't be asking, right?
Well, I know, and I'm really guilty of that, Jeff. I mean, as an insider, I see what we send out, and sometimes lose sight of the fact that we've hit that subject over and over 100 times, and no one wants to hear it again.
Well, we just had this discussion the other day. I was writing a blog post, and you're like, really? We just talked about this, a couple weeks ago.
I know. Yeah. So let's get into some of those questions so we can get the answers out there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Here's our first question. Do you have a set of interview questions that one could ascertain why a donor has decreased their giving? So here's a question asking for questions.
Yeah. So interview questions to figure out why a donor has decreased their giving. Well, one very direct question would be to ask why they have. Although that would maybe be a little too aggressive.
Well, it depends, right? If it depends on the relationship you have with the donor.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have the kind of relationship where you can ask, and ask it in the context of satisfaction or lack of satisfaction, like, so, Anne, I've noticed that your giving has changed over the last year. Is there something that we're doing that has caused that change, or is there something that's going on in your own life that has caused that change? Because I want to be sure that I understand where you're at on this subject, so that I behave appropriately and we as an organization behave appropriately. So that's one line of questioning. That's
actually really good, because you're not immediately like, well, what's wrong with you? It's more, hey, is there something we haven't done that you're not satisfied with, or that we've done that's caused that? So,
well, and oftentimes another angle on that is a donor's decreased their giving, maybe because we haven't done a good job of reporting back on what that their gift has made a difference. So that's another area.
Yeah.
Are you getting, Anne, enough information from us on what you're giving? No, I'm not getting enough information from you.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be another thing. Another one would be, do you think that you and I are talking, Anne, about the stuff you're really interested in, the programs and that you're really interested in here at the organization?
Yeah.
Well, actually, Richard, you're not talking enough about that, because you talk to me about X, And I'm really interested in why.
See, that's good because that opens up the conversation further to really get to the donor's passion and interests.
Yeah.
Right?
So it could be something that we're doing. You could ask a question about that. Mm-hmm. It could be something that has changed in their circumstances, a death, a divorce, a loss of job. The market has gone down, who knows what, or they're angry. It could be that we're not giving enough information or the right information. It could be that we're not, that we don't have a match between passions and interests and what we're talking to the donor about. So you could create questions in any of those categories to figure out why is a donor decreasing their giving.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, let's go on to another one. Our next question is this: are you suggesting the ask is not the same as an annual letter, but something more personal?
Oh boy, here we go.
Yeah.
I got in a conversation this morning, Jeff, about that whole thing about annual, and for you listening, it's the whole annual thing for Jeff and me is a particular sore spot because it focuses the donor on the money.
Yeah.
That's number one. And it focuses the donor on the frequency of giving, namely annual, when we know that donors give, 2.4 to 3.6 times a year on average.
We had a full podcast just on that.
Yeah. So I guess the answer to the question is yes, we are suggesting that the ask is different than the annual letter. I mean, and in fact, the ask should not even have annual or anything annual about it, but it should be personally tied to what the donor's interested in and what their passions and interests are.
This is interesting. As you know, we work with a lot of public media organizations and other membership type nonprofits. And in doing this, which is all great because they're, donors give reoccurring gifts. So they have really high value and donor retention rates, right? Mm-hmm. Because they've created this system, this fundraising system of kind of an annual membership kind of thing.
Right.
So, so they're doing really well on that part of it. But what we've been having to do over the last couple of years is get them out of this mindset, internally at the nonprofit, but also changing the mindset of the donor that this is not just about this annual thing, and that really a transformational gift is not going to come from some letter you say, hey, it's at that time of year again. It's going to come from sitting down across a Zoom call or across the table when we're able to, looking that donor in the eye and knowing their passion and interest, matching that up with a specific program and asking for that gift.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference right there. I mean, it really does. In fact, we've said over and over again that membership programs of any sort, any kind of membership program, does have a tendency to suppress giving, which is sort of counterintuitive, isn't it? I mean, it's like, what do you mean? Well, because or a pledge program. Now, the advantage of a pledge program is you have continuing giving.
Yeah.
So there's
pledge programs.
But it actually reduces the giving because what if George or Mary or Ann, the donor, have the ability to give so much more? We see this in a number of United Ways around the country where they have the Tocqueville Society, which you give $10,000. And you analyze those lists, you see these Tocqueville members, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000 for 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
And you know that those same donors, who many of our very high capacity donors are giving the 100,000, the 500,000 elsewhere in the community.
Yeah, that's the key. So a lot of these arts organizations or other membership, public media that have these annual membership and programs, and they've trained essentially these donors, they have to untrain them.
Exactly.
to start taking them to a new level. And that's what Major Gifts really is about. It's about understanding who that donor is, their passion and interests, and matching it up with specific offers, programs, and projects that you have that are going to excite them to give those bigger gifts.
Yeah. And so the short answer to the question is yes, an ask needs to be intensely personal.
Yeah.
To the passions and interests and communication preferences of the donor. An annual letter is not personal. First of all, it's about annual. Secondly, it's about the organization. It actually has nothing to do with the donor. It's
right.
about the organization and its fund.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, here's a good one. Another question. What does the system created to allow the donor to reach their full potential look like? And how do you implement something like that?
Yeah, so we've talked about it a little bit already, but a system that has a focus on identifying the passions and interests of a donor.
Yeah.
And then matching those passions and interests to a budgeted need in the organization, budgeted, not non-budgeted, because we're trying to cover the operating costs of the organization this financial period. That system is what actually allows the donor to reach their full potential.
Yeah.
If the ask is based on that system. Why? Because you are talking to the donor about something they're interested in.
Right.
I mean, I had a conversation this morning with a person where it was like, well, why would I give to a university when they're asking me? I mean, I'm only going to give so much for the annual fund,
right?
And or this general thing for the College of Medicine, and basically, I was saying back to the person, look, what are you interested in? And it was basically something else in the university. And they're not talking to the person about that thing they're interested in. So it follows that you're not going to have the donor reaching their potential if they're really not interested.
Right. Exactly.
So here's one for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
If a mid-level officer has a great relationship with a donor who now has made a major gift, would you recommend that the donor stays with the mid-level rep, or do they move to the major gift person?
I think we get this question almost every time we talk. We either do a webinar or talk about mid-level, or this comes up a lot. So a lot of people have this question. I would say that 99% of the time, you would not keep it with the mid-level rep. You would move it to a major gift officer. And the reason for that is that the major gift officer is going to be able to spend much more time and attention on that donor than a mid-level rep who has typically, between 500 to 600 donors in their portfolio versus a mid-level or a major gift officer who has 150 donors. And I mean, the only time that we've recommended that they stay is if the organization might be a local organization where a mid-level rep and all their donors are already within the same location, and that they sometimes use the mid-level reps to reach out to donors personally and actually see them, and that they have such a great relationship that it would really hurt that relationship. But it's so rare. Most of the time, the majority, like I said, 99% of the time, we move them into major gifts. We have a whole system of how to do that properly.
Right.
Where the major gift officer and the mid-level officer calls the donor together, and they talk about the reason for wanting to move it over to the major gift officer. And every time we've done that, we've had no problems with the donor accepting.
It's more
that.
about the transition and handoff than it is.
It
about
really
anything
is.
else, isn't it? Yeah.
It really is.
All right. What about this question?
Okay.
We are too dependent on fundraising events. So someone wrote and said this: we are too dependent on fundraising events. what's the best way to pivot to reach the same body of people in this new space we're in?
Yeah. Well, this is good because we've gotten this a lot in 2020 and now coming into 2021, people can't do those events. So it's actually been really good, we think, because now people are forced to really deal with it, because we've been saying this for a long time.
I know.
Like, you've got to reduce the number of your events. And I think from the very beginning, when we started years and years ago, Richard, when we started talking about this, your idea was the best. And that was, look, let's say you have this event, you're making $500,000 from this event. Okay. Let's say it costs you $250,000 to do the event. All right. That's $200,000. So the net is $250,000 from this, and all the time and energy it takes to do that event,
which you probably haven't counted into the cost.
Right. Exactly. But let's just take that. You could take that $250,000 that you spent on the event and have, two or three major gift officers potentially. Let's just say it's two major gift officers.
Right.
Who have a caseload of donors, who are working those donors and developing one-to-one relationships with them. And over time are going to see so much more revenue than you would ever see from an event.
I know. I mean, we know that. In fact, we know that if you're actually managing a donor properly, the revenue from that donor that will be just the revenue retained from the donor will go up by 30, 40%.
Exactly.
Which if you have a donor that's giving 10,000, that one donor is already contributing in the first financial period, $6,000.
That's right.
And I know that for you listening, you're saying to yourself, well, that's kind of complex to figure that out. Well, just believe us that managing a donor properly has a better economic payoff than doing an event.
Yeah.
So that's the point.
Yeah, it's and then on a very minute basis here, you could also, someone would say, well, this event really brings us a lot of money. Okay, let's see all the donors that gave to your last event, and what did they give, and what is the relationship you have with that donor right now, and you take those donors that gave to the event and now develop an individual plan around every one of those donors to start cultivating and stewarding that donor on a personal one-to-one level versus waiting for them to give to an event.
Right.
And spending all the money to get them to do that. And over time, you're going to be able to, with that relationship, get even higher, bigger and bigger gifts from that donor than you would from any event.
Yeah. So what you're saying is the pivot is basically to move from the events to actually managing those people on a highly personalized basis.
Exactly.
That's the pivot.
That's the pivot.
Yeah.
Take
Excellent.
those event donors and personally develop relationships with them.
Yes, it'll make a substantial difference both in terms of retention as well as upgrading and giving, and all the way around. You'll have a far better economic picture and result than you do doing the event.
Okay, those are some great questions. And from what I can tell, we've got about another 270 to go.
Oh, my goodness.
But because we don't have another 40 hours here, we're definitely going to have what you said. We definitely have to do this as a reoccurring thing here on this podcast.
Yep, I think that's good.
But before we go, however, Richard and I want to get you a free resource that we think will be really good, as it's still really early in the year. And that's our new white paper called Don't Pivot, Change It. And we wrote this out of the result of the pandemic and having to change the way we're doing things. And I think you will find it very helpful, especially in the last conversation we had about events and what to do about that now you can't do those live events. So go to veritasgroup.com and find our resources tab, and you'll see our white papers there. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Nothing But Major Gifts podcast from Veritas Group. Richard and Jeff also write an ongoing blog that you can subscribe to for free at veritasgroup.com. Please join us again next time.